I used to enjoy a satisfyingly smug little smile to myself when I heard people on daytime television talking about their dead relatives appearing in the form of white feathers. Some soft-headed girl missing the 60-a-day granddad who died too young, so she sees him every time a seagull gets in a fight and drops some plumage. The broken mother who left her 6-month-old baby in the bath while she answered the door, and swears blind he leaves her a tiny white feather on the bed every morning. She hasn't noticed that her pillows, sodden with tears, are coming apart at the seams. But after my father died and I started to see him in the wind in the trees, my smirk began to waver. His lungs failed him in the end, and he'd gasp repeatedly that he couldn't get a breath as we sat helplessly by. He took his last on All Saints' Day, so the days that followed were sharpened by gusts whipping round corners, and I'd imagine him swooping up there, taking great greedy gulps of the cold, wet air. When I lay in bed in the mornings, my heart too sore for rising, I'd see him in the sunlight and wind, in the shadows of leaves on the wardrobe he'd bought for me, a piece of furniture which, though it looked entirely out of place in my new house, I couldn't bear to shed. The flit of the leaves on the pale wooden doors brought light and air to my eyes, a cool hand for my hot and weary brow. It seems it's this flitting that has always put people in mind of departed friends. When souls are described as fluttering free from their earthly bodies or winging their way to another world, we can't help but picture them as birds or butterflies, whose transformation from lumbering caterpillar to winged beauty represents so perfectly our hopes for an afterlife. In folklore from all corners of the world, it crops up over and over again. In America's South, some people call the hooting of owls old folk talking, and perhaps sorrowing hearts in Virginia sit up at night, listening intently, hoping to make out a word or two. In Denmark, they like to say that lapwings embody the souls of women who died as spinsters, and that green sandpipers are nothing more than old bachelors' souls come back. The Danes hear the former sing, "Why wouldn't you?" and the latter, "Because we dare not." Further east, Russians' folklore tells them that dead children return as swallows in spring to console their parents. And if any grief is in need of assuaging, surely it is theirs. In the last months of the year, as decay sets in around us, and any uneaten fruit on the bushes shrivels back to a desiccated suggestion of itself, our losses seem part of the natural cycle. But as we face spring with new life unfolding everywhere we can bear to look, it's a blow each year to face it without the chicks we lost even as we reared them. The swallow's cry tells heavy-hearted parents that nothing is forgotten, and that there is still a spring for them. Perhaps I would never tell this to a supermarket magazine, but since my sister followed our father, now and then I am stopped in my tracks by a thistle seed blowing my way. Since Letty never weighed very much, it seems appropriate. Walking by the sea with my surviving family, a seed will blow into my open hand and stay a while, though I cup my hand only slightly. I never see it fly away, just notice that it's gone, after something else has grabbed my interest. Letty never got to claim her pension, but she marked it neatly for our attention and left her nearest with more than a little to remember her by. I used my share to pull apart our dark North Sea facing kitchen, which chilled the whole house no matter how high I cranked the aging boiler. We tore out the endless brown cupboards which left no room for a table, and stripped the icy blue paper from the walls. A kind young man whitewashed those walls and covered the deathly cold floor, and now we sit there around a rickety table, a holy trinity, warmed by the stove I'd thought I could never afford. She had an unerring way with interiors, my sister, and every time someone praises my taste in decor, I don't tell them that I do not do this alone, because I know they won't believe me. They can't know my rooms do not usually offer this warm embrace, and that I could see her in every colour we chose. The day the last sunny lamp was in place and the final picture hung on the bright walls, a thistle seed floated in through the open door. I watched it as the breeze blew it around the room, but it wasn't until the next day that I noticed it had settled on the shelf beneath a mirror strung with soft fairy lights. The wind blows through the door every day, and I dust the mirror every now and then. But years later, the thistle seed is still there, growing heavier with dust each day. It's perched on the edge of a tiny old jar, whose careful cursive script tells me it was meant for nutmeg. The jar lies empty for the moment, and I live in fear that someone will notice its cloudy passenger and dispose of it with a well-intentioned swipe. I check every day to see if the seed is still there, and it consoles me each time it tells me that nothing is forgotten, and that she watches me still.